Okay, so what I've noticed in every session, we kind of all are saying the same thing. So we're going to go through this kind of fast, but if you have any questions, let me know. And then I want to kind of do some things together and maybe try to work through some behaviors that you have in your class and just talk about some things and discuss, since we have kind of all been talking about the same thing and positive reinforcement. So, but most behaviors are learned behaviors, even challenging behaviors are learned. So a child had to get something with the behavior that they used. So if my kid, asked for something 4 times and I decided to give it to them and they were yelling, but I gave it to them anyway because it was driving me crazy, and after the 4th time I'm like, okay, well of course they're probably going to do it again because I just did that. Yes, I reinforced that behavior even though it's not a behavior that I want them to have. So we need to look at the intent of behavior. I think I pushed the wrong button. Oh boy. Hold on. Yeah, not yet. Okay, so what is the student telling you? I think Tressa went over some of this in CPI, but what we often forget, and I do in my class, like when the child comes to school, even on the bus, what happens on the bus, because we have a couple kids, something happens on the bus or the bus driver says something to them, the whole day is off.
They got to talk to you for 30 to 45 minutes about what happened on the bus.
Before.
Just to get it out of the system. And if we cut that off, then we end up with some behaviors that we might not, are less desirable than letting them just vent their frustrations.
So just what's the student telling you? And I know that everyone says you need to know the student's story. But you need to know, did they have a rough morning? Are they hungry? Do they have food in the mornings anyway? Because some of our kids, they don't have breakfast in the morning, so they have to have breakfast here. But if they get here late, then they probably missed breakfast already, and then we don't really know they had breakfast. So, and that can make them pretty angry. Another one of my kids, she was falling asleep at daycare after school. So then when mom picked her up, she was asleep at daycare. So she picked her up about 6. So I don't know how long she slept, but if she slept for even 2 hours, what do you think? She probably couldn't go to sleep that night. So then she couldn't go to sleep that night. The next morning, she has to wake up for school. She comes to school, and she does not want to be there. She doesn't want to do work. And those are the behaviors that we have to, shape. But to me, she would say she was tired, and I would let her take a little nap. But that can't happen all the time. She has to get her academics. So anyway, and so I started talking to mom and seeing what we could do at home just to help her. If they want to get out of the room because of the lights, I don't like doing whatever we're doing, or they can't do it, they're rebelling, or maybe they're just acting out because of the kids in the class. It's too cold, loud, or bright. Like it was pretty cold in here when we came in. So, or they don't feel well. And what I've noticed with some of our kids, the special ed kiddos, parents will send the kids to school sick, and then we end up calling them anyway. But I mean, it's because they want them to be at school, and I get that. But for them not to keep them at home because they're kind of a handful. But really, they're sick. They need to stay home because then they're just having behaviors that sometimes we haven't seen before. And so we just want to talk to the parents and just have a good communication with them, but just really talk to the kids too, if we can, if they're verbal. We were gearing this to gen ed also because we want our SPED kids to stay in the gen ed class instead of coming back to us all the time for some of these challenging behaviors. So they need to get to know our children as well. So having that relationship with the gen ed teacher is huge. So you can talk about different things and know the behavior of the child too. So some of the papers that we sent out or passed out, there's some questions, and they're kind of short, and a gen ed teacher would probably have time to fill those out, and you would probably want them to on your sped kit, because so then you know what's going on, and so you can help them. This year, we had a kindergarten kiddo that was having a lot of problems, and the kindergarten teacher really didn't know who to go to get support other than admin. And then they tried to help her, but then they got, then I was involved, and then the ED teacher got involved. But they don't really know that they could come out to us and get help, because this child wasn't, she was a sped kiddo, but she wasn't in the autism program, but she was having, her classroom was like 2 doors down from mine. So just because she's not in my class doesn't mean that I can't support her. And we need the teachers to know that, because she was like, I would have never come to you and bothered you, because for one, this child doesn't have autism, but it's not about that. It's about, I have some of the tools that you can use, and if you're 2 doors down from me, you need to use me. You know, I need to help you, and I will. Of course, I'm busy too, but we need to be there for our gen ed teachers. Okay, let's see. Okay, so, and then, of course, you have to specify the behavior. It has to be a behavior that everyone, when they see it, they know exactly what the behavior is. Compliant behavior, David sits on the bus without hitting or kicking staff and students, or engages in preferred activity. Hitting, of course, uses any part of her body to make or attempt to make forceful contact with another person. And then non-compliant behavior, Thomas refuses to engage in an activity or instruction by dropping to the floor and covering his ears with his hands. So if you see that, anyone can take data on this, because you know exactly what it looks like. So you'll want to specify the behavior. So just the appearance of behavior can help figure out the purpose of the function. And I think like 3 sessions I went to talked about functions of behavior. So we need to know the function of the behavior. What are they trying to tell us? So the common ones are to get something, to escape a demand, to avoid a person or activity, to gain attention, for sensory, or to maintain a sense of control. So I know that we have a lot of kiddos in our classes that do some off-the-wall things, challenging behaviors, and you know, and I know Kelly said this in hers, but you know, when you see these challenging behaviors, and I know as a gen ed teacher, I'm sure they're like, because I have, you know, 28 kids or 29 or whatever, 30, and then you have this kid that has a challenging behavior, but we have to find out why, because they're just trying to tell you something. And what tends to happen is they want to send them to the SPED teacher and take them out of that situation. And I know that you can't keep a kid in a gen ed classroom if they are screaming and throwing things. I get it, because that is out of control. But you're not teaching, if you're taking the kid away, you're not teaching them how to deal with that situation. And clearly that's the situation they need help with. So you need to teach them the skill they need to stay in the classroom. And I'm preaching to the choir here, because we're SPED teachers, but gen ed teachers tend to want to push them out. Because it's disrupting. So if we can maybe support them and even go in and observe to try to figure out the function of that behavior, then we can help them. So, okay. So this information is on one of your handouts. It's just some questions that would be easy to fill out, and then it would help us kind of figure some things out with the kiddo, and then if we could do the ABC data, we can maybe find out the function of their behavior. Let's see. So I'm not going to read it because it's on your paper. So we have to create a positive plan. So we want to deal with triggers, and I know we've heard this a bunch of times today. The core feature, adapt the environment. Tressa said that this morning. Teacher replacement behavior, reinforce the new adaptive behavior. One thing that when Dr. Singleton came and we had some trainings with our paras, here at Soldier Creek, and one thing that the paras kind of were like, what? At first, because he was telling us, when you teach a new behavior, you are going to reinforce it every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And the parent was like, are you kidding me? So then they're just going to get out of whatever we want them to do. But the point is that, at first we're given reinforcing every single time. Then I'm like building it and then reinforcing. Then like we did writing, and one of my kids hated writing, and then he knew he could get a break. So at first he said break, 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 and he would get a break every time. Of course it was like 30 seconds or something. So it wasn't huge, but we would give it to him every single time. And then we, after he understood the word break and knew he was gonna get that break, then we went to just a line of handwriting. When you get done with the line, you say break, you have a break. And then he did that. And then we would go to 2, and then the whole paper, and then the whole writing session we got to. And now he's doing it, and he doesn't need to take a break per se. I mean, he's actually pretty happy about it. But at first he didn't know. I think he just didn't know my expectation about when it was going to end. So if my expectation wasn't there, he didn't know, and he wanted the ending. So that's a big thing. So at first we just need to reinforce, and it doesn't have to be. We don't have to go spend a bunch of money, and because a lot of our kids love praise, and so or high five or thumbs up. Or I had a kid this year that wanted a good note to his mom every day, and I mean he drove me bonkers because he would say good note all day long and go like this, and I was fine with it because he wasn't having his challenging behaviors. He wasn't doing anything he shouldn't. So I was like, you know what, if he's saying good note, that's fine. And I was like, yep, good note. And it just took a second. So let's see, manage further.
And this is one thing about positive reinforcement is it does seem like a lot at first. You're like, oh my goodness, how am I going to spend this much time on this one kid who does this one thing? I have these 14 other kids that need my help at the same time. But you're saving yourself so much time on the back end because you're just going to continue to deal with that challenging behavior. You're still going to continue to engage in that dance and go round and round. Mm-hmm. This is time consuming in the beginning, but now with some of the kids that we've used this with, it's not even an issue now. Whatever the challenging behavior was, I don't want to do math. Well, now I have a student that sits and does math. We would have to, well, it's math time. Okay. I'm doing my math. It's not a thing anymore. We've moved on.
And some of the challenging behaviors, so we were just working on writing or she was working on math, but then some of the other challenging behaviors that they may have, because at first when we did start this too, we were like, oh my goodness, this kid has like 4 challenging behaviors. How do you work on all of those? But then after you teach a new behavior, you wouldn't even imagine that the rest of the behaviors just go away. And we were like, oh, wait a second, that's awesome. Because then they understand. They're like, oh, wait, so if I do this, then I get this. So it's been great. I mean, that doesn't mean that I don't have, I have some behaviors that I just haven't been able to fix. And, I've tried so many things, changing the environment. So there's some things that I keep looking up, researching, and trying to figure out, on a couple kids because it's pretty hard. So how? You teach a replacement behavior. So sometimes you want to reprimand a child by removing their favorite toy, but it's not going to be effective. It might be effective right then for the moment, but it's not going to be long term. So the child needs to be specifically taught what to do instead of engaging in challenging behavior to have amusement. Kelly went over this in her class if you were in hers, but just about how she did the check-in, check-out intervention. She had, their goal and exactly what they needed to do. So, if they needed to start their work quickly, you don't really know what that means. So then on the back, she would write, you need to start your work in 3 minutes or 30 seconds or whatever the goal was. So the child knows exactly what they need to do. So then they're not, they know the expectations.
Absolutely. So you need to, once a replacement behavior is identified, you must teach, role play, and rehearse the new behavior. That doesn't mean when the challenging behavior is going on, and I know that Tressa said that earlier, but you gotta make sure that they're in a spot where they are ready to do all of these things. They're ready to be taught, and they're ready to learn, and they're ready to do that. You need to remind the student about the new replacement behavior just before entering situations that trigger problem behavior. I like to talk about my birds in the nest. I had a little boy who liked to use an inappropriate finger, and he would call it flipping bird. And so I would say, oh, where do we keep our birds? Do we keep our birds out, or do we keep our birds in the nest? Like, I remember they're baby birds. We gotta take real good care of baby birds until they grow up. So we've got to keep them nice and safe. Now, where do we keep our birds? In the nest. He wasn't happy about it, but he kept the birds in the nest. So I'm like, where's the nest? I didn't even do this. This is better than flipping the bird at recess, because then he loses recess. He has to come in because he can't be flipping the bird at kids at recess. But he did learn to keep the birds in the nest, and all I had to say to him was keep the birds in the nest if he needed to run. And then the pair that took him to lunch would take him before he went outside. She said, "I remember those birds. Keep them in the nest. Okay, we get to keep them in the nest. They get to keep playing. They come out of the nest, then we have to go into the school." So we did a lot. That was our replacement behavior, was where to put the birds. So following the event, review how it went and building on the positive. So every time he came in from being out somewhere that he didn't use the bird, he got something in return for that. And he got to pick from a few things that he liked.
Oh, it's the, left one, sorry.
We're
We're going to Peak of the Mountain.
There we go.
Okay, is that where we were?
Sure. Yeah. So you always want to catch a student exhibiting appropriate behaviors, and you want to praise, praise, praise. And I know it's hard to remember when you have 30 kids, 28 kids, 14 kids, 10 kids, 8 kids, 5 kids, but you have to praise, praise, praise that behavior. The more praise they hear, the more likely they are to continue doing the behaviors that you want. And encourage your incompatible or replacement behavior. Simple instructions with extra processing time. I have one that has a very long processing time, and I've had some issues with Paris sometimes not allowing that child to process. If you tell him the same thing 3 times in 30 seconds, he's still trying to process what you said the first time. Give him some time. Let him have that processing time so that he can figure out what he's supposed to do. Redirection. A lot of people have talked about social stories today. Visuals and a visual schedule. But they don't need to be pictures for anybody who's upper elementary, that secondary. You can do a checklist. My son uses a checklist for everything. My oldest son uses a checklist for everything. Trust me, his life would fall apart if he didn't have it.
I do, too. Or Post-its or something.
Yeah, I mean, he has them for how to clean his bedroom. He has one in his locker, checklist that he needs to go down, and it's just because he can drive home now. So, my dad, he lives with my parents, and he's in his last year of high school. So I made him a list, and I said, "Dad, you need to print this out, laminate, and go put it in his locker." He's got his checklist. He goes down. I had physics homework. Let me open my physics book. Okay, no, put that one back in the things that they need to do. If they have a schedule, that anxiety that Tressa talked about is not going to be as much. And make sure you schedule time for breaks. Remember, we don't work in 6 hours. We don't work in 6 hours. 30 to 45 minutes. Let them take a break. Let's do something that maybe is appropriate for school, but still something that they like to do. Just some downtime.
With the incompatible behavior, we all have the kids that can't keep their hands to themselves. So I have these like thumbs up and thumbs down on sticks. And so I would just hand them to the kid and he would just like look at them. But we were just at circle time, like morning time. But he'll just hold them, and then that's better than him hitting. And I know it's kind of silly, but he would hold them and not hit anybody or not do anything. So, and that also helps some of our boys that want to touch places on their body a little bit too much. I had to do that also. I mean, I know these are crazy behaviors, but that's what we work with. I mean, even typical kiddos, So we just need to give them an incompatible behavior or a replacement behavior. So, yeah. So this is the top of the mountain, the peak. Go ahead. Okay. Consistency, we've talked about it all day. Stay positive. When I gave this to the staff of Soldier Creek, I just said, believe in yourself, because the kindergarten teacher was so defeated by the time that I even came to help her. She said that she had went home and cried because she didn't know if it was something she was doing, and you know, so it was hard for her. And then she was like, oh my gosh, thank you for helping. And I was like, we need to make sure that everybody in the school knows who we are, even if we're the autism program. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's an ED classroom here, and then we have the SPED lab teachers. All of us can help. We can support you. And so I just said, believe in yourself. Remember, challenging behavior is temporary. We know more than anything, it's going to get worse before it gets better. So, and then things will improve. Prioritize and pick your battles. We discussed that today. Kelly discussed it. I think Tressa did too. You know, and one thing with our paras, we notice, and with teachers too, but we need to pick our battles, because like if we're in the lunchroom or for breakfast, in the lunchroom for breakfast, and it's the morning and this kid just got off the bus, and you want them to have a good day. So little things for breakfast, if they are acting out, little things, I would talk to them, but you don't, I mean, we've noticed that sometimes they get onto the kids so fast, and then their whole day is messed up. So we just need to realize that sometimes we're causing the behaviors. And of course, we all don't want to admit that, because we're teachers.
And I would say, when you pick your battles, if you want a kid to do math, give them a choice. They'll feel empowered. Multiplication, I usually have 2 or 3 or 4 the same basic thing. Which one do you want to do?
Or even an easy one and a hard one, because even if they do an easy one day, then they're going to get to the hard one and really
It's
just
gonna
give
be the
it.
only thing left.
Yeah, give it to them and give them the easy one, or even make modifications. Make them just do like half of the page. I mean, it's funny because it's not a power thing with us. We want them to understand the skill and the concept, and to be able to, you know, go and graduate and stuff. So we just want the skill to be there. I mean, if you really do a whole page of math, I don't know. Is it going to matter? Or if you know the skill, you know, that's what matters. Okay, so these are some websites. Goodness, we've talked about this all day.
Yeah, I think I've seen PBIS 3 times
And
today,
Intervention
maybe.
Central, and Behavior Babe. This is ABA. She has awesome things. She has so many free things too, like ABC data charts. Not the one I gave you though, it's a different one, but it's fine. I mean, you can use any of them. But she has so many things that we can go to her website and I'll show you. But we have 2 videos to show.